This film begins by showing a Russian mafia group led by Gazi welcoming his business associates in front of a bar in Moscow. At the end of the street, Mayor Valentina Koslova, originating from the Russian MVD, Ministry of Internal Affairs, the ministry responsible for law enforcement, is disguised as a civilian, monitoring Gazi's movements. This is part of a joint operation between MVD Russia and the FBI, aimed at capturing the mafia members involved in a global criminal network. Besides Valentina, FBI Deputy Director named Carter Preston and his team are also conducting surveillance from inside a car. After confirming that Gazi and his mafia group have entered the bar, Valentina leads the ambush on the mafia group. Despite seeing members of the MVD and FBI surrounding him, Gazi appears calm and arrogant. He offers a sum of money to Valentina to cancel her team's arrest. Valentina, not tempted by the money, continues her duty, stating that Gazi will be arrested for the murder of a high-ranking MVD official. Gazi denies the accusation until Carter, who is also part of the ambush, informs about the discovery of Gazi's DNA at the MVD official's death site. Gazi starts to panic with this evidence and tries to attack Valentina until she is forced to shoot him dead. After the incident, the MVD and FBI teams immediately evacuate, while Carter approaches Valentina outside the bar to express gratitude and acknowledge that her decision to shoot Gazi was the right one. The next day in Helsinki, the Russian mafia group led by Tarek Murid gathers to discuss Gazi's death, and one of the mafia members who was present at the scene explains the ambush carried out by the MVD and FBI. Unfortunately, the overwhelming number of law enforcement personnel prevented him and other mafia members from resisting. Hearing this, Tarek inquires about how many police officers the mafia managed to kill that night, but upon learning that no police officers were killed, Tarek becomes disappointed and kills the mafia member. He then warns all his members that he has no doubts about eliminating anyone who lacks the courage to fight against the police. Sometime later, Tarek goes to meet a hitman known as Jackal and expresses his desire for revenge against the MVD and FBI members who killed his brother. Tarek then asks Jackal for assistance in eliminating several targets he has identified and requests the hitman never to appear in public after taking the job. Jackal agrees and asks for a payment of 70 million euros, with half of the money to be given to Tarek before he completes the job. Jackal reminds Tarek not to contact him through phone or fax and advises the mafia to stay out of Russia. Another point Jackal emphasizes in this mission is that he has the right to continue or cancel the mission if their conversation leaks to others, but the upfront payment Tarek has given cannot be refunded. Meanwhile, at the United States Embassy in Moscow, the MVD and FBI are seen holding a meeting to discuss their next steps after Gazi's death. Valentina informs them that Tarek plans to eliminate FBI and MVD members, and in the last 2 weeks, 8 MVD members have been killed. She then shows surveillance footage of her team, indicating that Tarek's group has rented the entire floor of Hotel Porvu, and for the past 5 days, no one has left the hotel except for a man named Viktor Politovsky, who visits the post office every other day to collect mail. Therefore, Valentina and the others order their members to apprehend Viktor to gather information about Tarek. Without much delay, the field police officers promptly arrest Viktor just after he leaves the post office. Meanwhile, Jackal is at Helsinki airport, having stolen an old man's passport to use as his false identity for a flight to London. Using the name Charles, Jackal goes to a bank to deposit his money into 2 Luxembourg and American bank accounts. After completing the account opening, Jackal orders the rifle he needs and asks the seller to send the rifle to Montreal, Canada. Back to the MVD and FBI team, they reconvene to review the results of Viktor's interrogation. Unfortunately, they don't obtain much information as Viktor only mentions the name Jackal. Carter, upon hearing this, informs everyone at the meeting about the possibility of Tarek hiring Jackal, a hitman still wanted by the FBI for several high-profile assassinations. Valentina adds that Russian intelligence agencies have also used Jackal's services, but no one has ever met the hitman in person. In addition to information about Jackal, the police officer interrogating Viktor also discovers data on FBI Director Donald Brown, who is suspected to be a target of Jackal's assassination. Returning to Jackal, who is now in Montreal, he appears using his false identity to purchase a car to make himself harder to trace. Upon arriving at his hideout, Jackal conducts an experiment to see how long it takes to remove the paint coating on his car using a water spray, so he can determine the time needed to elude his pursuers. As for Donald, he instructs his FBI subordinates to keep the Jackal manhunt operation classified, which will later involve cooperation with the CIA and the Russian embassy. During the operation briefing, Valentina has identified at least 6 members who are believed to have seen Jackal directly. Unfortunately, 4 of them have died. One is in Libya, and another member named Isabella Celia Zancona is in the United States. To determine Isabella's exact whereabouts, Carter and his team meet with Declan Joseph Mulqueen, an Irish sniper who has worked with her and is currently in prison on charges of illegal arms trading. When meeting Declan, Carter informs him that the FBI is searching for Isabella because she is an illegal immigrant in America. However, Declan is skeptical, especially since the FBI sent a deputy for an illegal immigrant. Realizing that his lie has been uncovered, Carter eventually explains that the FBI is pursuing Jackal and they need Isabella's help as she has met the hitman before. If Declan is willing to disclose Isabella's whereabouts, then Carter is willing to reduce Declan's prison sentence. Unfortunately, Declan is not interested in the offer, as he will only cooperate if Carter ensures Isabella's safety and allows him to return to Ireland. Carter states that he cannot assist Declan in returning to Ireland, especially given Declan's extensive criminal history. Disagreement with Declan's request, Carter and his team intend to leave until Declan suddenly reveals that he has met Jackal and knows how the hitman operates. Declan then agrees to cooperate in hunting down Jackal on the condition that Carter will not involve Isabella in the operation. Shortly thereafter, in a room, Carter speaks with Declan to ensure that he can trust him and that Declan is not working with Jackal, which could jeopardize the FBI's joint mission. He also reminds his subordinates not to record Isabella's name in their operation notes because her involvement must remain strictly confidential. Meanwhile, Isabella, speaking with Declan, hands him a key to a public locker containing a passport and some money he can use to return to Ireland. While accepting the locker key, Declan states that he cannot leave America as he has entered into an agreement with the FBI. Declan, who has feelings for her, then asks if she is happy with her life, and she admits to being happy with her husband and daughters. Back at the FBI office, during a meeting with the FBI and MVD teams, Declan shares information about Jackal, who usually uses 4 false identities to carry out his assassinations. Valentina discusses Tarek, who typically kills all his enemies with his own hands, but after learning that the Mafia has hired a hitman, it indicates that Tarek's target is not an ordinary person. On the other hand, Jackal secretly photographs a building where an event will be held in the next 2 weeks, attended by the First Lady and Donald. That evening, Jackal goes to a nightclub to approach a man named Douglas who has deviant sexual interests. Sometime later, Jackal is in Montreal to pick up his ordered equipment. Coincidentally, the police are looking for someone using a false identity in the city. Jackal, using the name Charles, becomes one of the suspected men by the police. He quickly parks his car in a hotel parking lot and sprays water to peel off the car's paint layer and changes the license plate to evade the police. When the police arrive at the location and become suspicious of a pool of water around a car as they are about to investigate, the police officer is inadvertently poisoned by a substance Jackal sprayed behind the car. As a result, the FBI loses track of Jackal in Montreal. The next day, Jackal goes to Ian's place to collect his ordered equipment. When Ian asks for the blueprint design of the equipment as a bonus for his work, Jackal agrees with the condition that Ian provides a location for testing the equipment. After Ian takes Jackal to an open field, the hitman assembles his rifle with the equipment and aims at a pumpkin that Ian has prepared as a target. Jackal attempts to shoot the target pumpkin using the remote-controlled sniper device, but he is disappointed as it misses the mark. Jackal then turns the weapon towards Ian and terrifies the arms maker, causing him to flee in fear. Jackal proceeds to gun down Ian with the rifle he is using, killing the arms maker. Meanwhile, the FBI team already in Montreal receives information about a man named Charles, who recently bought a new minivan, along with a report from a man with the same identity who lost his wallet at the airport before purchasing the minivan. They then go to Ian's location after reports of Charles, suspected to be Jackal, visiting the place. Upon arriving at Ian's location, the FBI members find blueprints of the equipment ordered by Jackal, which Declan identifies as a maneuverable, large-sized weapon, requiring a van to transport the long-range sniper weapon. At the same time, Jackal is purchasing a ship to transport his weapons. While on the ship, he receives a call informing him that the FBI has discovered his presence in Canada and has information about Declan assisting the FBI in hunting down the hitman. After receiving this information, Jackal continues his journey and attempts to blend in among the sailboats participating in a sailing race on Lake Michigan with the finish line in Chicago. The FBI and MVD teams have become aware of this, and they hurry to Brighton Beach, New York, a stopping point for the boats participating in the race, to search for the hitman. Declan, who is not allowed to carry weapons, manages to spot Jackal on one of the boats. Fortunately, before Jackal can shoot Declan, Valentina comes to his rescue, though Jackal ultimately manages to escape from Valentina's attack. In the next opportunity, Declan meets Carter to express his suspicion of a traitor within the FBI because Jackal didn't seem surprised when their team arrived. Carter denies this, stating that all his team members would not betray them. Carter then asks Declan for his reason for accepting the FBI's offer to cooperate, and Declan explains that he wants to seek revenge against Jackal, who once trapped him during a weapon transaction in Libya. In that incident, Isabella was also shot by Jackal while she was pregnant with Declan's child. Turning to Jackal, who has escaped from the FBI's pursuit, he goes to a secret location to retrieve his backup false identity and then leaves using a ship. Meanwhile, during a meeting at the FBI office, the team is shocked to discover a phone call made from the FBI office to a number in Brighton Beach at 1 a.m., which informed Donald and the First Lady's meeting schedule. After conducting an investigation, the Russian ambassador to America admits that the voice in the phone call recording is Valentina's. Carter, not believing it right away, instructs his subordinates to check all documents belonging to the Russian ambassador. That evening, Jackal receives a call informing him that the Russian ambassador can no longer be reached using the usual number. Meanwhile, Valentina is seen evacuating Isabella's family to Washington for their safety. At that moment, Isabella tells Valentina that neither the FBI nor the MVD will be able to capture Jackal, but the Valentina responds that she will do her best to apprehend the hitman. In a warehouse, Carter informs Declan about the evacuation of Isabella's family that has been carried out. Carter also reveals that he has prohibited his subordinates from mentioning Isabella's name in the operation reports to prevent Jackal from learning about her involvement in their joint operation. However, Declan feels uneasy about this, suspecting that the Russian ambassador may have informed Jackal about Isabella's involvement. While examining the Russian ambassador's notebook, Declan asks Carter about two numbers listed in the book. Carter is shocked to realize that one of the numbers is an FBI access code. He immediately contacts the FBI data center to request archives of several of his team members who are suspected of mentioning Isabella's name in their reports, potentially revealing her involvement in the joint operation. Carter also requests the FBI to send a helicopter to his location so that he and Declan can quickly go to Isabella's safe house, as they suspect that Jackal has targeted her. At Isabella's home, Valentina and two FBI agents are conducting an inspection when they are suddenly attacked by Jackal, who has been hiding in the closet under the stairs of the house from the beginning. Two FBI agents are shot dead, while Valentina, who is also shot, is still conscious. Jackal asks her to deliver his message to Declan, that Declan cannot protect the woman. After conveying his message, Jackal leaves before other FBI agents arrive at the house. Shortly thereafter, Declan and the others finally arrive at Isabella's safe house and find Valentina in critical condition. With her remaining strength, she conveys Jackal's message before eventually succumbing to her injuries. Declan then approaches Isabella and discreetly gives her a weapon because he knows that the FBI will not allow her to possess one. Sometime later, the FBI team held a meeting to discuss strategies to prevent Jackal's actions. Declan, who attended the meeting, explained that Jackal could only carry out long-distance attacks, so they needed to determine a location that could cover all areas to monitor Jackal's movements. Meanwhile, Douglas, who turns out to be an FBI agent, receives a phone call from Jackal, who makes an appointment to meet at Douglas's house. Initially, Douglas thinks that he and Jackal will spend time together, but Jackal actually only uses Douglas to hide from the other FBI agents chasing him. Just when Douglas is watching news on TV about a police fugitive who resembles Jackal, without hesitation, the hitman shoots Douglas dead because he is seen as a potential threat to him. The next day, Jackal, driving a red minivan, is near the location of the grand opening event of a hospital, disguised as a police officer. Meanwhile, Declan is seen watching an interview with the First Lady until he remembers the message left by Jackal for Valentina and realizes that Jackal's actual target is not the FBI director but the First Lady, who will deliver a speech at the hospital's grand opening that day. Quickly, Declan informs the FBI team and explains his plan, which involves positioning snipers on the rooftop to monitor Jackal's whereabouts. On the other hand, Carter is tasked with securing the First Lady around the stage in case Jackal launches an attack. Although they could request assistance from the on-site police guards to secure the First Lady, they are concerned that Jackal might open fire on the crowd, causing civilian casualties. Returning to Jackal, after he sees a police car approaching his minivan, he approaches the officer to explain that they are looking for a dark brown minivan. Jackal tries to deceive the police by claiming that he has only found a red minivan that has a valid parking permit at the location. Shortly after the police leave, Jackal begins to activate his remote weapon control device, and just as the First Lady is giving her speech, he opens the rear window of the minivan to aim at her. Just before he fires, Declan, who has positioned himself on the rooftop, manages to locate Jackal's weapon and shoots it. Unfortunately, Declan only manages to damage the lens of the long-range weapon, allowing Jackal to still take shots towards the stage where the First Lady is standing. Carter rushes and successfully saves the First Lady from the attack, although his leg is hit by a shot from the hitman's weapon. Declan then asks the sniper with him to destroy Jackal's weapon, while he immediately descends to chase after Jackal. As Declan suspected, Jackal heads towards an underground station not far from the shooting location. Jackal then suddenly jumps onto the tracks just before a train passes, making Declan think that Jackal has been fatally hit by the train. However, to his surprise, the hitman survives after successfully jumping onto the adjacent track. Declan, seeing that Jackal is still alive, quickly runs after the hitman, who is walking along the train tracks. Just as two trains pass, Jackal manages to save himself by taking cover at the tunnel's edge, while Declan gets trapped between the two tracks, struggling to maintain his balance and avoid being dragged by one of the passing trains. Shortly after, Declan resumes chasing Jackal, even managing to shoot and wound the hitman's leg. Cornered, Jackal chooses to take a girl hostage who is waiting for the train, demanding that Declan put down his pistol. Declan, unwilling to harm any innocent, complies with Jackal's request, who eventually releases the girl. Just as Jackal is about to shoot Declan, Isabella arrives and shoots the hitman, dead using the weapon Declan had given her earlier. At the end of the film, it shows Declan and Carter attending Jackal's burial in an unmarked grave because the FBI still does not know the hitman's true identity until his death. After the funeral, Carter apologizes for not being able to grant Declan amnesty. They also discuss Tarek, who has reportedly been successfully imprisoned, while Isabella has safely reunited with her family. Before leaving, Carter admits that he knows Isabella gave Declan a locker key containing money and a passport to escape, but he believes Declan won't use it. Moral lesson from the story: sometimes, even the smartest criminals make silly mistakes, like using bright red coating minivan for hiding weapon. But if you find yourself caught in a tricky situation, just remember that pumpkins are better targets than people.